You know where Kiruna is? Is in the polar cycle, right? So we literally had to go close to the North Pole in order to find a clean room to be able to assemble our first satellite.
10 years ago, you were a 22-year-old aerospace engineer at Airbus. Today, you are the CEO of Open Cosmos and over 120 million in contracts secured in just the last year.
There were devastating floods in Valencia, in my home country. The whole city was sort of destroyed. Over 240 people died. And despite Open Cosmos was very quick generating the images, and in 4 hours, we already had like the first image.
What I really want to understand is how. How does someone from Mallorca build satellites faster and cheaper than anyone thought possible, while actually making money doing it?
Right.
Space is humanity's greatest laboratory. Defense is democracy's strongest shield. And today, in workshops, in laboratories, in startups, a new generation rises, not to observe history, but to write it, where every innovation above drives progress below, where every breakthrough in defense preserves our freedom to create. Behind every breakthrough stands a founder with a story. Now these stories emerge to light the path for those who follow. Welcome to Rockets and Radars.
To start simple, what is Open Cosmos? By the way, welcome Rafael to the pod.
Very happy to be here, Martin. What we do at Open Cosmos is pretty simple. We design, operate, and we design, manufacture, and operate satellites that are used to understand and connect the world.
Okay, great mission and a full stack. I love it. Okay, great. And I would love to get also into the personal side of the things. So who is Rafael when he's not revolutionizing the satellite industry, actually?
I'm a dad.
If you have any free time.
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
I'm a dad, so I have daughters. I'm a family guy. I'm originally from Paradise, from Mallorca. So when I'm not working in the company and building satellites and stuff like that, I'm back in Mallorca, my home island, with my family.
Nice one. Okay, great. Let's get into the story. Let's go back to 2009. You're in your second year at the Universitat Politècnica de Catalunya in Barcelona, and you participate in a stratospheric balloon project. Tell me about that period and what was the most fascinating part about it.
Yeah, so many times actually people ask me when was the idea of Open Cosmos born and so on. And it's so difficult to put a moment in time. As a child, I was super curious always. So I didn't even know that I wanted to dedicate myself to aerospace engineering or space engineering. Like I could have ended up doing literally anything because I just love learning about everything. But when I was at university is where I truly heard the calling, right? And it was through those projects. One of those first initial projects was putting like a sounding balloon into the stratosphere and taking like very high resolution pictures from it. We also did like sounding rockets that turned supersonic. We built like CANSAT, like emulators of satellites. And through those projects and through the friendships that I developed through that with many of my peers and colleagues, several of which, by the way, are at Open Cosmos these days, and the rest of the students around Europe that were working and stuff like that, I really realized that space was actually very important for my happiness, something that I was willing actually to deliver, to devote a lot of my time to. And when I linked that to what it could be used for, it really, that calling, that technical passion actually converted into a purpose as well of why is this technology not more widely used? Why are we not using like satellites for so many use cases that could be done related to climate and to many of these other things? So the naive student in me thought that those things were not being addressed. So I made it my life goal actually to make that available to everyone.
No, that's amazing. And I can see why it's so hard to pinpoint the moment. It was more of a gradual maturity, actually, of your life mission, I can say, right? Because you have been at this for some time now. Okay, let's get into a big milestone. I think that is pretty connected to the timeline as it is. Later in time, in 2010, while still a student, you joined Zero to Infinity as an intern. What did you learn at Zero to Infinity that you couldn't have learned anywhere else? And and I also want to understand, was there a moment where you thought, okay, this is actually possible. This is not just sci-fi. The space industry is actually real. Was the revelation happening already there?
Yeah, a lot of that was linked to that time at university, right? So, for instance, the fact of me joining as an intern, Zero to Infinity at the time was we were working as students in this, balloon to the stratosphere. It was one of our side projects, and we took some pretty cool pictures. And the founder of Zero to Infinity, Jose Mariano, was my teacher at university. So
And he was one of our past guests, by the way,
he's
as
he's
well, which
awesome.
is
He's a
funny.
great guy, and basically during those years, we were doing all of these projects, and I think he started also enjoying seeing us working on that stuff. And when he decided actually to fund Zero to Infinity, he picked up like two or three of us to start working alongside with him. So even if it was like an internship role, like we were doing everything there together with him. So I remember even pitching to some investors when he was traveling and working towards like the structural design of the preliminary pods that were to be put in orbit and in the stratosphere. And some of those moments actually really empower you as a young student, a young engineer. Because for me, before that moment, it was unimaginable that anyone could start a space company just for the sake of starting a space company. But living it when you are 22, 23, firsthand with someone that is starting and seeing that we are raising the resources, that we are growing a team, that and I am doing and contributing, I think, meaningfully to that on the side of studying and conducting my day-to-day studies at university was a pretty cool experience to have soon, right? Then obviously I went to Airbus and I also worked for larger corporates. But that first moment, I think it's what got the entrepreneurship visibility in me and like showed me a new world, like another world that, hey, even in the space sector, this purpose that I may have, actually, there might be the option, if it's not solved by others, actually, to potentially start something of my own, right? So it became something feasible from that moment onwards.
If you didn't have that internship, do you think you would found Open Cosmos?
Yes, I do think so, to be honest, because what led me to found Open Cosmos was not a willingness to be an entrepreneur or the passion for the technology, was more the need that I was seeing in customers and the need and that purpose drive, right? So I think that when you are driven by that purpose and you have people asking for things that are aligned with it, you end up finding a way actually to get out of the comfort zone and push for it, whether you are equipped for it or not. Would I have been uh, successful at achieving it without having been doing that internship or having been at Airbus or having done the MBA or having studied aerospace engineer? Who knows? Probably not, right? The likelihood of success in startups is very slim. So if you maybe remove one ingredient, you might you might
Yeah, it's always the mix. Yeah. Okay, great. Anyway, and you already nailed the next point I wanted to get into. After university, you joined a big prime, Airbus Defense and Space, which at least back then was literally Europe's largest aerospace company. I would say that's a dream job most engineers would kill for. And I, I'm very curious. Did you think that you are going to start the company at the time when you started at Airbus? And did you think about it as a transition period,
no.
or you didn't have to start zero?
No. I went to Airbus like thinking that a lot of the purpose and things that I wanted to achieve, like making satellite technology and capabilities available to many, would be possible there. So I was willing actually to fulfill my purpose within Airbus. Um, then you learn also how things work, right? That companies have sometimes other priorities, and um, yeah, you end up having to find your own path towards achieving that.
Yeah, and you actually did. And you were still at Airbus doing your MBA, and then you just leave to start Open Cosmos in your late 20s. Super terrifying, I think, for that period. I'm very curious, was there any specific trigger that let you decide, okay, now it's the right time to actually get into starting a company?
Yes, many actually, and you are absolutely right in the fact that it was totally terrifying because I come from a humble family in Mallorca, and uh, all of my environment was thinking, "Oh, this is the dream job." Rafael has studied aerospace engineering. He's in the right place. Da, 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 da. And then one day you go back home and you tell to your parents, I'm going to leave the company because I want to start something. And when you tell them, I'm going to start a satellite company, they said, "How is that even possible? Like, Rafael, do you know what you're talking about?" And by the way, you're a kid, you're 20, 25 years old.
25, right?
Yeah, when I spoke first with my parents, I think I was still 25, turning 26 the same year. Yeah. So it was like, what the hell? Well, is that possible? And in the end, actually, what triggered it was over the span of years, this idea of building like end-to-end missions was growing very strong in me. Like I was quite convinced that people wanted to use the infrastructure, not necessarily procured each part of the infrastructure. And now it's quite common to think as a mission as something that is delivered by a single organization from the beginning to end. But at the time, people only thought that NASA or ESA or Airbus could do that, myself included, right? That's why I joined one of those organizations. But when you start seeing that the economics around electronics and launch change, when you start seeing that within the cost of those missions, actually use cases that wouldn't have closed with larger satellites start closing, and some customers asking if you can deliver data or connectivity solutions in those lines, start materializing. When you start seeing that some of the friends that I had from university that had moved to the US were starting up or joining
Hmm.
companies that were already working with that mentality, you say, hold on a second, like this thing that I have sort of envisioning. And again, it's not something that happened overnight, right? You had built the conviction over years, and then you see it happening in front of your eyes. Like you can do two things, right? You can just say, huh, that's not for me. Someone else in the US will do it. Or you can say, this makes sense. Unit economics makes sense. People are asking for this. I have these customers that really need it. Let's try it. And I think the naiveness of that moment was very important as well. Like thinking, hey, I can do this. I can I can deliver a satellite together with some of the smart people that I had been working some of my projects and then so on. So let's jump into it. Let's give it a try. That was really like the 0 to 1 moment, right? And it just takes that. Just like some people
A spark.
sometimes think that it's all about
Hmm.
the idea or about the vision, or no, the reality of being an entrepreneur is just feeling that there is a really big need that it's aligned with your purpose, and you just decide one day to wake up in the morning saying, I'm going to take the first step. And then comes the second, and then comes the third.
Hmm.
That first step is,
I really like how you think. You are problem first. Nobody's doing it. Okay, let's fix it. The market is in the right constellation. Let's just get into that. I really like that. And when you mentioned that you weren't necessarily trying to become an entrepreneur, I think that's a very strong predisposition of starting something that will actually work if there is any market pull, right? Okay, and anyway, regarding finding a company, you actually did that in July 2015, and tell us more about the process that led you there since you quit Airbus.
yeah, that was quite crazy actually. So some of the, because I was doing the MBA, we had access actually to some of the people, senior people at Airbus, and I was always actually going to them with these ideas, all of them around kind of the concept of open cosmos, and they were saying, "Yeah, this is a pretty solid idea, actually. It's a pity we will never do it here at Airbus because our overheads are like that, and that would cannibalize like our core market, which is these very large and expensive missions that we charge governments and telecom operators like big amounts of money. Why would we start doing that for 100 times less? And then actually
Does make sense. Yeah.
technology isn't there and so on. Say yes, but the technology is getting there. The innovation cycle enables like change to happen faster. To me, it was from a first principle perspective. So this is gonna happen, right? So after realizing that and having kind of some people that I really respected, also kind of validating that my thought process was right. It was all a matter of, okay, I have to do this. How do I remove as many, early barriers as possible to make this happen? And when you start at 26 a company, 25, 26 a company, what you really want to make sure is that you have a network of people that have already done it, right? So you don't go against like basic
The wall. Yeah.
basic mistakes. The second thing is that you do it in a place where there are the favorable conditions for that to flourish. So enough capital, enough access to talent, a regulatory and policy framework that fits what you are going to do as an organization. And I remember when I started brainstorming, like, okay, one of the key questions for me first was like, where do I do this? And everyone was telling me, go to the US. Everyone around me, like, there is the money, the market, 50% of it is there. So I applied to several accelerators in order to get into that network in the US and in Europe, and submitting the business plan. Thanks to the learnings from my time at Zero to Infinity and my time doing D&D,
Nice.
I could also have like a good grasp about how to put the finances, the business models, the plans, not only the technical value proposition. And to my surprise, we were selected in all of them. So then
Wow. Okay. Hard decision.
then the question was not like only, okay, I'm forced to go there because that's where I got it. It's like, no, I have to choose. And there were options in Europe, there were options in the US. And the decision was very clear. I wanted to build it in Europe. That's why I went to the UK, to a place called Entrepreneur First. That was really, really important in the early journey of Open Cosmos. And that was based on three key aspects. Number one, the UK framework actually was already the UK was already seeing like a space as a key industry. They had a multi-year strategic plan. They had just started the UK Space Agency. The European Space Agency was also starting to have a stronger presence. So there was a clear strategy behind it. The second thing was access to talent. So I could attract a lot of people that don't have language barriers in order to be able to work in the UK. By the way, all of this was obviously pre-Brexit, right? So when you go through the developments of life, sometimes some of these parameters end up changing. And then the third thing that was for me very important is that I could sell to anywhere in the world from there. In the US, a lot of the space technology is considered defense technology, right? But the UK and Europe has like an approach to it that is very diplomatic, collaborative. I thought, okay, we have to build it here for the world. And our purpose
Interesting.
was to bring these capabilities, this technology to as many, many users as possible, right? So doing that from Europe became quite strategic. And we've done that ever since, doubling into doing it from Europe for the world from day one, and we are continuing, pursuing that approach.
If you would start it now, where would it be?
That's a great question. Definitely, I would start it in Europe. One question that they ask me in my home country, sometimes in Spain, is like, why didn't you start it in Spain? And the simple answer was that I incorporated companies very quickly in both locations, UK and Spain. One immediately got traction and growth, which was the UK, where we got like the first satellite contracted when the company was 3 months old, right? The other went a bit slower. Now has achieved like great growth as well, but that was a key factor. And it comes back to where do you find the least barriers in order to be able to scale and grow those companies. Now, these days, Spain, UK, Greece, Portugal are phenomenal locations, I think, where to start companies, right? Um, Maybe before the UK had like a clear edge on a lot of the things, I think so many of the other European countries have massively developed some of these, not only the space industry, but the culture of entrepreneurship, right? That is needed for founders to be able to thrive. And that's not only economical backing, it's like a culture of risk taking, of support, even sometimes like emotional support towards those founders that are trying to do something really, really hard, right? I think you can now find that across all of Europe.
Very good filter. Where are the least barriers? I love it. I think it boils down everything into one question, and it makes it so much easier. And it depends on where you are in the industry, where on the value chain, right?
Yes.
Super interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, great. I would love to get into co-founders. You brought Alex and Jordi as co-founders in the very beginning. And what I wanted to get into, how did you find them? And how did you convince them to join you on the mission?
So there are several funny stories around those times. So put yourself in my shoes. I started the company in June. We get the first contract for a satellite around September. I
Wow.
already knew that this was sort of coming. We had before had some smaller contracts with ESI Zero to build CANSATs and educative prototypes for students to learn. Which, by the way, that was super important because that was my initial source of revenue, right? So when I founded the company, I had like, I don't know, 9,000 euros or something like this in my bank account. So I had the basics actually for survival when moving abroad to the UK to start, right? So um those first months having like the contract with ESA started giving us some money to start, and then at month 3 you get the contract for satellite. At that time I was still alone, right? And I was pushed.
Oh,
Yes, because I put the first
makes sense.
proposal, all of the preliminary design. Some of my friends were helping me on the weekends, and I was, help.
Nice.
Yeah, they were all very annoyed at me because I was asking, "Can you review this thing about Rafael? Why are you putting a design of a satellite for? Like, go back to Airbus." It was like, no, I have to try this. Let me do it. And some of those friends from university that were helping me over the weekends and all of this were Alej and Jordi, right? And they were seeing how little by little, I think things were happening. Now, Alej was having like a stellar career at the European Space Agency. He was working on lunar landers. Jordi was, super talented system engineer and structural engineer at Airbus, at SSTL, actually, in the UK, developing the next generation platforms for the small satellites. And I was telling them, guys, you have to join. Like we just got the contract. We have to deliver. By the way, it's quite crazy because we have to deliver a satellite in about 6 to 7 months. But who gave
As a startup, yeah, sure.
and I was like, hey, it's now or never. You can be there doing, yes, lunar lander is super cool, but maybe over what, 10, 20 years actually. Now we know that design will never fly, right? So um I told them, we have the opportunity to try to do a satellite company for real. It's very difficult. We have 6 months to prove ourselves right. Most likely, and I've shared that with the customer, which at the time was the European Commission, right? So basically, how did we get that contract, by the way, so quickly? The story, long story short, is that there was this program called QB50 that was run for, I think, 8 or 9 years. And when it was very close to the launching time or the final delivery dates for the satellites, it was realized that many of the satellites would not make it in time. So what I did is I proposed that Open Cosmos would deliver a satellite that would host the sensor that was going to do the science for the commission um, as a backup. And I would finance the things, the milestones and the things ourselves. And if we managed to deliver the satellite in time, then they would cover the launch costs and the equipment and all of this stuff. And I think that after persuasion, they actually found a way that we could do a backup because it had no risk to them. It was only upside. And that's how we got that first contract. When we had that contract, I was just begging Alej and Jordi and many others actually to join me, because it was like, obviously I'm not going to be able to deliver the satellite on my own.
Alone.
But if I have a team of 5, 6 super talented people in different domains, we already had done a lot of the designs of the electronics. We had done 2 iterations already when we were students of some of the elements of the onboard computer. So we put all of that together. We leveraged also a lot of the relationship that we had built through the projects with other people that were in potential partners for the supply chain, suppliers of electronics, suppliers of structure, and we set ourselves on the objective to get that first satellite delivered, because that was already becoming a satellite company. And if I may, just to explain like a tiny anecdote, I remember very well the conversation that I had with Jordi Barrera, who's now our CTO, to convince him to join, because he was very worried, because he was telling me, Rafael, it's impossible that this satellite is delivered in time. Uh, and you should know this. And the customer has to know it. It's like, the customer knows. I've explained that this is a backup, that we are going to do everything. I don't think they expect us to be able to deliver, to be honest. But every step that we take towards trying to deliver that satellite, even if we just pass PDR or we just pass CDR, it's a step closer that we are to being like a real end-to-end satellite mission provider. So let's take those steps and let's not deny ourselves the chance. Based on that statement, he joined and we delivered each milestone. PTR, CTR, delivered the satellite, passed all of the tests, and actually it was eventually launched and was successful and delivering what was needed through the entire lifetime of the mission. So yeah, proof that people working really hard with a clear objective, small teams, we were 5, 6 people at a time, are capable of doing unimaginable things.
Well, it's an impossible mission that you made possible. Was there anything that you did differently that made you to build a satellite that others couldn't on time?
For the first mission, there was a lot of resilience and, to be very frank, a lot of brute force, right? So we were working 24/7. We were going the extra mile on whatever needed in order to find solutions. Things were breaking up as you were, working on these things. You were finding bugs, you were finding problems, because we did all of the software for that first satellite as well. So it was an exercise of resilience every day, knowing that you were finding something that could be fatal towards the delivery of the mission. A supplier, actually, I remember it very well, like a supplier that we still use to today, so a supplier of AOCS systems, called me on the 22nd of December, telling me, sorry, Raf, the thing is stuck in Houston. It's not going to be able to arrive until, I think they said, like the 20th of January, something like that. No, like this ruins it all. Please go there physically, try to convince them so it can be shipped over Christmas and we can have it on the 3rd of January, which is why we need to. So we were constantly facing things like this, and staying resilient and keeping our goal of we don't give up was definitely the key for that project to be able to be delivered successfully. Another example of that is, like, you need to assemble these satellites in clean rooms, right? You cannot do it, on a normal desk. So as you can imagine, I had no clean rooms and no access to clean rooms. So what did I do? We emailed all of the universities, the university where I had studied, all of the universities around Europe, like, can you give me like a desk in the clean room, and we will put the name of the university to the satellite, and you can say that you are part of it. I just need a desk. We'll take care of everything else. And everyone was telling us no. I mean, even our own university was telling us no. And some of that was a bit painful in the beginning because it was like, yeah, no, sorry, we don't want to associate ourselves with someone that is time. It might damage our reputation. We don't want to put the name your first satellite. And that was painful to hear, right? But then you also understood. In the end, we did found one, LTU. Actually, this is crazy, but we went to the, you know where Kiruna is?
Yep. Wow. Okay.
Is in the polar cycle, right? So we literally had to go close to the North Pole in order to find a clean room to be able to assemble our first satellite. So that's where TB01, the first satellite that we built in those days, was assembled. And yeah, thousand stories about those times. And this was only possible because of the resilience of people like Alej and Jordi that have the same drive and the same resilience that we share, and a lot of conviction that we were taking steps in the right direction. Again, one step after another.
How many universities did you contact in the end? Do you even remember? Hundreds,
Look,
I can imagine.
yeah, I don't think that 100, but it was in the high 60s, high 70s, something like that. And I know because this year we turned 10, and I did some review of the early days. Actually, I came across the first deck that I put together. And those, by the way, are exercises that I recommend to any founder that has been on it for years, because makes you go back to those days and remember what you were thinking and what drive you had and what was driving you. Fun fact, like our deck from those days, when there was a slide that it said like master plan, and already showed first we start with satellites, starting with education activities there, then satellites, then constellations, and finally we'll deliver data solutions, intelligence and capabilities on those domains. And when I looked at that, like, yeah, we haven't pivoted at all. We've been so lucky that the what we were listening in the market and from the customers is really what has ended up materializing. With some adjustments, we've done adjustments into how we have executed and delivering many of those things, but the overall goal like was already present. So those exercises of going back are very important. And while I was doing that exercise, I checked some of those early emails of people telling me, sorry, we can't give you a desk at our university because you are a risk to the reputation of our institution. It was like, okay.
What the crazy times, and working 24 hours, that required so much dedication. And I'm very curious, how did you find those crazy people to join you apart from the co-founders, the rest of the
At
team?
Entrepreneur,
What was your process of finding?
at Entrepreneur First,
Ah,
Entrepreneur First, it's a very special place because what they do is they select people just based on talent. um, and they start pairing them in order to find co-founder dynamics and ideation that leads to them founding a company. So I joined there because of the traction. Very quickly I said, okay, I'm not going to focus on trying to find like a co-founder. I'm going to try to focus on executing this project and have as many of the people that, because companies sometimes don't work, not because of the people or the talent of the people, just because of timing or because of different elements, right? So I thought, okay, I'm just going to pull through the program, and then if there is very smart people that can help and feel the same passion that I do and see me doing this and want to join, hopefully I will be able to create a of of of, of founder mindset people driven, extremely capable in the different domains. And that worked really well because that was the team of 5 that make the magic happen. 2 of them I already knew from the university times, Alej and Jordi, and the rest I gathered from that ecosystem.
this proves the point of choosing the environment wisely, right?
Exactly.
Where the talent pool and resources are located. Great. One more thing I want to get into before we get into the next chapter. How have you been financing yourselves? You had your 9,000 euro in your pocket. Anything else that you have acquired during this period?
That was so the customers first. So we got the first contract with the European Space Agency towards the zero. That was, I don't know, 35K to deliver 700 CANSATs. But that to me and to the team meant like nearly a year of runway with the frugal lifestyle that we were having, right? So that really helped in the beginning. Then when we had to start procuring for the satellite, it got tough. So I got a personal loan that was also very scary. So 20K from an individual that gave me a personal loan. And with that,
Mm.
I procured a bit. And funny enough, when we delivered, we closed like a half a million pre-seed, I would call it, from a curated peer of angel investors, of which the person that had given me the loan agreed actually to convert towards. Um, that that happened once we had already delivered the satellite. so so people sometimes think you look for the seed investment in order to deliver your first solution. In our case, like we were so customer centric that it was like, okay, we delivered to a first customer, ESA, which builds a reputation, even if weren't doing satellites with the CanSats at the time. It was close and it was in the roadmap on the right direction because students could assemble payloads on top of that, and the architecture resembled the satellite. It was actually to teach them how to build satellites, right, in a way. So it was sort of a line, it was a starting point. Then you hit the contract of a satellite. There you have to change the thing. So I managed to get that early personal loan. Then it converted into a half a million round. But that was only once we had delivered the satellite.
Mm. Show not tell, right? I love it, going customer first. Again, very unique for the industry, actually.
We sort of bootstrapped our first satellite, to be honest.
Regarding the satellite, QB01 actually launched successfully in April 2017. So imagine your first satellite is actually in space. I want to understand, what was that moment like? Were you terrified every second that this
Yes,
wouldn't work or
absolutely.
stop work?
And we ended up waiting for that launch for ages because another funny thing that happened, like the commission had procured launches from the NEPR, I think at the time, and the NEPR stopped working for as for launches. So that meant that they had to find another launch opportunity, and we had rushed to deliver the satellite timely in February, May of 2016, and then we ended up having to wait for them to find a launch for an entire year, right? So actually, when the satellite was launched, we were already working on so many other things that, to be honest, we didn't have
Tell me more.
the time to enjoy that moment. It was like, okay, we'll take care of it. It's like the operation, but we were already working on other satellites that we were delivering for other customers. So I would love to tell you, yes, it was a magical moment, super special. No, we were heads down. We didn't even go to see the launch. Like we didn't have the time, nor it was a priority for us to spend money on that, right? We were working on satellites for other customers. That was our priority.
Oh, curious, did QB01 give you a more open door to the next generation of customers, the second, third, fourth, fifth? Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. So the moment that we delivered that first satellite and it passed all of the tests, the word started spreading out in Europe. The European Space Agency heard it from the Commission, from the von Karman Institute that was managing the QB50 program. So the word spread out, and so many people came to us like, we've heard that you've done a satellite in 6 months. Can you do something like that for us? People from the telecom side, people from the agencies, from some of the different governments and institutions related to governments. So yeah, that was definitely an accelerator. Actually, if I go back to that first slide that we did, I think that in my roadmap, the first satellite was to be delivered originally. I envisioned it in year 4, year 5. And actually, we delivered it when the company was 8 months old. So that catalyzed everything. That accelerated us way beyond what anyone could have hoped for.
Usually it's opposite, right? Things takes longer than you think, but in your case, wow, okay, 4 years versus 6 months, that's a difference. I love that. Okay, let's get into another big milestone. In December 2017, you closed a Series A round led by BGA Ventures of $7 million. Can we call this your first institutional round?
Yeah, this is the first, I would say, like relevant round, and this was this was actually to scale the company already towards delivering constellations. If you remember that master plan I was talking to you about, like, okay, we are now delivering single missions. The European Space Agency is already contracted because at the time we already were delivering, I think, 2 satellites for the European Space Agency, one under the Pioneer program, full end-to-end mission, right? So we already had customers that were going to fly things alongside that were envisioning telecom constellations and IoT constellations. So we were gearing up towards setting larger facilities in Harwell campus and growing the team, so we could deliver those constellations. That was the purpose.
By the way, I'm interesting. Was there internally any process of pursuing specific sectors like telecom that you mentioned, or were you just trying to figure it out who has the biggest interest in your satellites?
That's a great question. So we've always seen, and we still see, like the space industry and the satellite technology as an enabler. So that technology need to be available to serve other sectors, other needs. Telecom is probably one of the most validated ones because it's been a market for the industry for decades, right? So it was normal that the first commercial players, we were very commercially oriented, right? So the first commercial players to come knock our door when they were seeing the speed and agility were telecom related projects, right? But very soon we started seeing also projects coming from other domains like remote sensing, like uh, other applications of science. And we took the decision very early, and we still maintain it. Like, we want to be enablers. We don't want to be, um, kind of market owners or niche owners. We want to be enablers for this technology, this capability to serve many industries, to serve many companies, and ideally to serve billions of people that need the services from those companies, right? So with that mentality, actually, we developed a product, what we now call today Open Orbit, which is just to enable end-to-end missions as an end-to-end solution as a service, right? And the same philosophy we apply to all of our products, to the open constellation. It's like, yes, deploying those missions, but enabling then the constellation to be shared among different users, and those are governmental and commercial users that own assets and can share them in a mutualized way under the open constellation. The same philosophy we are applying also to Data Cosmos. It's not about us developing analytical applications to capture the entire sector. No, it's like, let's bring the data from the open constellation and other pockets of data that are available to as many analytical companies as possible to build solutions that bridge the gap that there is between the infrastructure and the actual end users. So all of the ethos, all of the purpose of our company is to be a global problem solver by enabling a myriad of solutions to emerge from this technology.
You mentioned 3 services or products within your portfolio. Did you get to all of them at once, or was there any process and a gradual internal thinking that, okay, we need to expand into this because it makes sense based on our overall overarching vision? Or tell me more about that. How did you get into those 3 products within your portfolio?
Yeah, the vision was there from the beginning of enabling to understand and to connect the world. That has been our vision from day one, right? So I say our mission. It's to develop satellites that can help understand and connect to the world. Um, but we were very conscious that we had to pick where to start in that journey. And for me, it was very clear. We had to start where we had an edge. And our edge was, we were good system engineers with good, design capabilities, with an understanding of supply chain, unit economics. So we started building probably the hardest bit, the hardware, the design, and we built it from there. At the time, it was counterintuitive. Some people were saying, "Oh, you should start by the users and then get pulled into this." Like, yes, but we have our edge here. I do see that we need to build a bridge there, but you can build it from both sides, right? So I'm going to start where we have the edge, the capabilities, put a first pillar. Then you move to the net, and this is when that was the first product, the Open Orbit product. Then okay, we need these the unit economics to be even better. So we need to reduce the capex from the customer side. How can we do that? Well, let's mutualize the shared economy, right? So let's bring some of these assets. Let's enable, because they go all around the world, people to use them effectively where it matters to them and share when it doesn't. And again, everyone said, this is madness. Who's going to share satellites? And we said, well, let's try it. And the customers were asking for that. Better unit economics, good performance, ability to collaborate. That's why the open constellation now has a massive network effect. Like last year we closed, I think it was over 100 million just on open constellation deals, right? And then that, I can tell you, 6 years ago, people were saying this is never going to fly. People are not going to share a satellite in an infrastructure. Well, it's happening. So that was the second pillar. And then the third became, okay, we need a platform to aggregate all of this data, to make it machine learning ready, to enable as many analytical solution players and so on to plug into it and to start serving solutions to the governments that are already buying us the infrastructure to elaborate further, but also to anyone that wants to use it. And that's how the third pillar was built a couple of years ago, that is Data Cosmos. So the vision was there, the path was there. We have been very lucky that our reading of the market was right and we didn't have to do major pivots, that things tractioned sustainably and profitably through that journey. And that we have, I think, taken the right steps in partnership with many others. Obviously, we haven't built all of this alone in order to be able to build that bridge. Now the bridge is done, and we see a lot of flow of resources from the downstream all the way to the upstream, which is what
Mm.
has to happen, right?
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your thinking. That's the most interesting part here. Did you, by the way, have any fourth service or product that never got introduced, or were you really successful with 100% of your
We we
efforts?
we no we had one a product that didn't succeed. That was a deployer of satellites. So one of the things that was challenging for us at the beginning was to make sure that we could, be fast enough in order to launch the satellites. And this meant at the time, now ride shares are very common, but at the time were difficult, right? And we're saying, hey, maybe we could convince some of these launchers actually to allow us to put the dispensers, like it's being done. And we designed a full dispenser with some innovations that made them lighter. We started engaging some of the suppliers. We actually even had a contract to put that dispenser. And in the end, we did all of that work, but the market for us and the product market fit that we could find when we were also delivering full end-to-end missions, we realized, okay, not many people are going to procure that from us. Probably they are going to go to specialized people that just do that, right? So we decided actually to stop that line. It was not core to our purpose either. It just was a side product that we felt there was a gap in the market. We tried to solve it for ourselves and to offer it to others. When we realized others like Ed's Launch and others were doing it much better with an integrated service, like, okay, not for us. We spent, I don't know, 200K on this. We learned. It was a 6 months, 7. We need to cancel that product, right? So yes, there are also learnings like this in the journey.
Thanks for sharing this one. And I want to get back into the timeline, Series A, especially 2017. By the time you got there, you've grown from 5 to 22 people, or around 20 people. And I want to understand if you can share any insights, any hardest parts of that scaling.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that was the hard learning during that phase was, so imagine we closed the round, we start recruiting all of these people, we set our facilities in Harwell, we start gearing up towards some of these constellations, and pre-contracts towards the constellations and so on, and all of the sudden COVID hits. That was what happened, and this was a brutal learning because overnight some of these contracts actually fall apart based on force majeure, right? So because some of those companies could not raise the money timely, so they step back from the commitments that they had. The team was, not able to go to the same place, and this with the staff that was being onboarded generated, kind of a lot of noise, right, and a lot of uncertainty to them as well. I mean, those were very uncertain times, right? So there was that dynamic from a team perspective, the dynamic from the customer perspective, and then we had to spend quite a lot of the capex already in the facilities and so on that we didn't know for how long we wouldn't be able to fully use. So that was really tough. And the key learning then, and what broke is like it broke everything at the same time, right? So you were asking me what broke first.
Of course,
For us,
always.
it didn't break like a part or something, or there was this little issue that we had to solve and improve while scaling. No, it's like existential. Boom. Customers flee, team is in very low morale, uh, facilities and expenditure. Like we had runway, maybe I don't know, 6-9 months, because we always have been conservative with our times when it comes to that. But we had just spent the money from the round into habilitating ourselves to do all of that. So we were at our lowest point in runway. We're just starting to get the revenues from some of those customers that flee. So we had to take very rapid and very hard decisions. So we had to put like nearly half of the team, I think even a bit more than half of the team, in furlough, under the commitment that we would be bringing them back as quickly as the commercial pace would pick up. We had to focus just on 3 or 4 projects that were core, which were the ones at the time for the governments and for the agency, because those were the people that were reliably going to be paying in time. The others were telling us, please don't send me this bill, or please don't do that. So we focus all of our resources on the customers that remain committed. And you obviously on those environments try to raise, but it's not a good moment, because there was a lot of predatory behavior. So we decided to say,
What do you mean by that?
sorry.
What do you mean by predatory behavior?
Well, when times like this happen, and particularly on those timings, like there were a lot of investors that were trying rightfully to take advantage of investing at very low valuations, at all companies that wanted to do overtakes. So it was complex, let's say, right, during those times. So, but again, like proof of our focus and our resilience, we looked at the numbers. Fortunately, we took the decision extremely quickly, and with extreme honesty and extreme clarity to the team, which extended our runway, right? It bought us time. But in these situations, if you doubt during 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month to take a decision, you've burnt a lot of that extra time, right? So we took extremely prompt decisions, and we took a path towards we have to become profitable, and we need to turn this to be sustainable. Yes, we've burned a lot of money, but we come from nothing, and we'll rebuild it from nothing in terms of resources, right? And we did it. So we came out of COVID actually 4 months after we had re-onboard everyone that had not decided to flee back into the team. Yeah, and rightfully, right? Some people had needs; they had to look for options to
Makes sense.
safeguard their families themselves. Some of them actually have come back now, also after some time, which is beautiful to see. Um, and then one of the key things that happened, that on the back of that very hard moment and very hard process, like we became profitable, sustainable, and we decided that we wanted to keep it that way. So since 2021ish, like we have maintained that profitability approach while scaling the way that we have been scaling, which is just thanks to the customers and thanks to the conviction that they have on our services and our reputation.
This is something I think almost unheard of in the current new space industry, being profitable. Usually the focus is on the growth. What do you think? What are the companies that are focusing mostly on growth missing? That companies like you that are profitable
They are
are not.
missing that you can have both. so so and it's really nice when you have both, because you can dedicate more of your focus to what matters, which is are the customers, rather than trying to chase money. Don't get me wrong. There are sometimes opportunities, transformational opportunities that require you actually to raise money for those step changes. And we have done it, by the way, every time that we have raised. So the first round of £5 million, $7 million, and the second round of $50 million has not been because we needed to extend runway or anything like that. We have only raised when we
Growth,
want
right?
to scale into a new paradigm. Do you remember the pillars? Correlates a little bit with those pillars. When we wanted to scale from missions into constellations, we raised. We were ready. So we are not gamblers. What we do is like we analyze, we understand how conservatively we can deliver on those objectives, and we always try to overachieve, right? And this is what systematically has happened at Open Cosmos. Like we ask and then we overachieve, we ask and then we overachieve, and that builds trust. Builds trust with your investors, builds trust with your customers, builds trust with your supply chain as well. Which, by the way, I didn't mention, but during those COVID months that extended nearly to a year, we didn't miss or delay a single payment to our suppliers because we didn't want that to be done to us, right? So
Mm.
we did pay each one of them timely. And I know for a fact that many of the suppliers went through that period relying on our payment, right? When we were actually just trying to get there to get the profitability. And that also builds a lot of trust. Some of these suppliers, we built a relationship over so much time that to me it's like if they are part of it, like they are working alongside our vision, our purpose, and there is trust, right? This is what we love building around us. Trust with the suppliers, trust with the
Respect.
customers. Exactly.
Amazing decision. You have my full respect here. There's one thing I would love to tap into. If there was no COVID, and after reflecting over everything that you know up till now since the very beginning, would you aim to become profitable sooner?
Yeah, we have always been kind of on the sustainability path. This is why also we could do a turnaround in our lowest point so quickly and effectively. It's like we have always have that mentality of growing as fast as we could. Like, for God's sake, we delivered our first satellite when we were 8 months as a company, right? So it's not like we cannot have fast growth. We do have that, but keeping like a good grasp on the economics, on the unit economics, because eventually that's what drives value to the customers. And we should not forget companies are not out there to, to raise money. Companies should be out there to solve problems and to earn money on the back of solving those problems.
I will print this out on my wall. This is a good quote, I think. Anyway, you mentioned this already, but I want to tap into it a bit. $50 million in September 2023, you raised Series B round, the second institutional round overall of your company. And what is super interesting here that here you raised as well from the climate-focused investors. How did you get them on board? Did the pitch change in one way or another, or was there something else that led you to get them on board?
Well, it was very simple. What are the biggest global challenges that we can address with satellite capabilities? I'm a strong believer that if you solve the biggest global challenges, you're going to have the biggest global rewards. And that it means financial rewards, impact rewards, you name it. So we put a list. What are the biggest global challenges that this can solve? There was climate, there was natural resources, sustainable use of natural resources, there was logistics and commodities and where things are and why. There was energy, and there was security and defense. So we said, okay, we need to focus on one of these challenges strongly, but actually as an enabler, try to address all of them, right? Because we want to help all of those problems being solved. And at the time, again, that was the time when we had decided, and we need to go a step further. Like building constellation, the open constellation is not enough. Yes, we have tons of data that customers are sharing and that we can have make use of in order to develop analytical solutions, but we need to help build that bridge. How can we empower hundreds of analytical companies and smart PhDs at Oxford, Cambridge, Barcelona, Boston to start developing these bedroom kind of analytical companies that can, build a new wave of applications, just like it happened with the internet, but now with data and with data coming from satellites. He said, we need to build something. We need to build a tool, a platform that enables more of that to happen. And for that, we needed funding. We also needed funding to expand. We, at the moment, our two only locations were the UK and Spain. We wanted to build like a bigger pan-European company, right? And for that, we needed to expand into other regions, win other contracts. And that's when we moved also, we grew in Portugal, in Greece. And now we are on the back of that effort also growing internationally. So soon we are going to announce actually further growth uh, in other continents, right? So all of this, the round was for that, always with the mindset of growing further on the back of the pillars that we had been building for the bridge.
Awesome. And we have talked about funding for a bit, and I want to reflect one more time on this round and on the previous one. What are the biggest differences that you have seen between the Series A and Series B? And also, overall, do you have any learnings you want to pass to the founders that might not have raised Series A yet, for example?
Well, I know it's not always possible, but for me, the key advice is like get the traction, prove the market, like sell, and then raise. It's not always possible, right? Some things require capex that it's unimaginable or very hard to get, and people have to raise in order to cover those capex. But guys, we did it with satellites. So if we've done it bootstrapping a satellite, maybe there are multiple industries where this approach may also work. That would be my thought or my advice to those founders. Then the difference between A and B, to be honest, to me, I didn't feel too much of a difference. Was
It's still growth, right?
Yeah,
We need to go to the next level.
exactly. For us, it's been consistent. It's been always the same process. By the way, each one of our rounds in the end has been oversubscribed. Why? Because we have the numbers. We have the, the things that proves that the thing is working. So then, when people realize that, then everyone wants to invest. And then we are not greedy either. So we try to find things that work for everyone. And we prioritized in each round, we have prioritized the speed over amounts or valuations or things like that. Because what we want is to get as little distracted as possible so we can go back to work and scale the new customers.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And one big milestone, I think, in July 2025, just a few months ago, you have done your, if I got it right, very first acquisition done,
Yeah,
right?
actually it was the second. But
Oh,
yes. So
still,
we acquired Connected, which it's an amazing company. Like Tiago and all of the founder team there, like shares our spirit, our purpose. They develop IoT payloads and services. That's their core, which to us is very synergetic. We have been flying IoT payloads. We have them actually baseline on all of our open constellation satellites. So it was a natural thing. Like we can fit that already into our offering. We can explore sensing with measurements from the ground rather than only sensing with cameras. It fits into the open constellation value proposition. The team in Portugal that Tiago has created is amazing. So yeah, it was a sort of no-brainer. And the other company that we acquired is more on the data analytics, actually data processing side of things. So in order to catalyze the development of the platform and make sure that the quality of the imagery coming from the satellites with all of the PDGS, the process chains and all of that was super professional, we thought, okay, this will take 2 years if we have to develop it in house. Why don't we go to someone that has already done? We acquire them and we get not only all of that know-how and IP, but also all of the team that can help accelerate that. And that was wonderful because this has improved massively the quality of the data on the open constellation, enabled the platform to be a lot more customer oriented and satisfying faster the needs of the customer when rolling out the data services. So yeah, really important acquisitions, the ones that we've done.
You already answered my next question, which was when are you thinking about acquisition making sense? Pretty simple math, right? This is how long it's gonna take for us. They already have it. Let's get them in house. So thanks for answering before I asked. Okay, great. And I wanna now learn more about the future. Where are you going as a company? Let's ask a very big question. Where are you 10 years from now on?
10 years. I mean, we've been only we founded the company 10 years, so I don't tend to think in the 10 years time scale. Um, we think in the 2 to 5 years time scale at most. Um, and to me, it's very clear. Like the purpose, it's ambitious and challenging enough actually to keep pursuing. Solving global challenges at scale is not something that we will do overnight, and enabling many people contributing to that, it's not an easy task. Um, the key for us is, if you remember the bridge that we have been building, there is a logical next step, right? We are, I think, doing pretty well at deploying infrastructure, satellite infrastructure, in a rapid and cost-effective manner, with recurrent customers, both from the commercial side and the governmental side. We have the open constellation, nourishing with exquisite data that we can put at the service of also analytical players through the data cosmos. So the key logical next step is, how do we make all of this run in real time? How do we make sure that that data is ready and available when it matters? And we had another one of those reality check moments actually around a year ago. You might not remember, but there were devastating floods in Valencia, in my home country, where over the span of 1 hour, like literally, the whole city was sort of destroyed. Over 240 people died. And despite Open Cosmos was very quick generating the images, and in 4 hours we already had like the first image while the clouds were opening, and we were able to do like a rapid remapping of which roads were accessible, which not, and we shared all of that obviously with the authorities. Like, it felt like, wow, how many people have died over these 4 hours, right? That was the question that was like moving us, and we see this constantly everywhere in the world all the time, like the Los Angeles wildfires, the fires that there were in Greece, where we are now also deploying like a 60 million constellation to help provide also timely data. That is not imagery and capabilities that should be offered like a day after, or even 4 hours after, like we manage actually to do, right? Like, it should be providing like the intelligence in sort of real time. So one thing that many people might not know is that we have already flown 4 satellites that have on board AI edge computing capabilities. One of them, Hammer, actually does not only have that, but it also has like an inter-satellite link that enables you to set the information that is needed already processed in under 3 minutes anywhere where there is internet.
Wow, 3 minutes.
Yes. So you turn these satellites into very smart satellites thanks to all of these AI capabilities on the edge, and then you connect them so they can start providing a lot of these services in real time. You might well just do that also direct to device if you have like the IoT capability to do that directly to the sensors on the ground. So next time that there is a flood, maybe things can be moved or things can be informed, and can be informed without depending on the terrestrial networks in order to be happening that, because just so often in events, climatic events like that, or at war, or at different scenarios, actually, you don't have the benefit of relying on the terrestrial infrastructure. So that's a very clear path for us, but it's not 10 years from now. It's actually something that we are already doing, that we want to explore how fast we can commercialize at the scale as well. And connectivity and communications, it's a very big part of that equation. So again, our purpose is to understand and connect the world. We've done great progress on understanding, I think. We need to start looking at how we can connect more of it.
Yeah, evolution over revolution, I would simply describe that. And I love your mission first approach. Anyway, we have spent 1 hour over your journey. I would spend one more, but this is the format. So thank you so much for sharing the story and insights. I have 3 last questions on you, which I call quick fire round questions, which are a bit unrelated maybe from timeline, but I was just so curious that I need to ask you them. So let's get into that. Previously, you've talked about youthful confidence being an asset, but you also worked at Airbus, got an MBA, had real experience before founding the company. What do you think? How much naivety is helpful, and when does experience become essential in this industry?
Well, naivety is essential as a founder because few things are so empowering as naivety to take that first step. And all it takes actually to fund the company is to take that first step. Now, experience and knowledge and understanding, it's something that helps you avoid mistakes. But I still think that I'm naive these days. Actually, when I go with some of the ambitions that we have, people are still going to like, Raf, that's crazy. That's probably not going to happen. Um, but we reanalyze that first principles always first. It makes sense. Team things alike, align with purpose, move on.
Okay, 2 more. If you could go back to 2015 and give yourself only one piece of advice, what it would be that you think could make a big change?
Um, I would say make sure you take better care of yourself, because the journey as a founder, it's a marathon, and yes, you might have seen by the conversation we've had that in our ethos we have quite extreme resilience, but this is one of the things that I wonder sometimes if if I had taken better care of myself, my health, my the people around me also during some of those periods, uh, would it have been better for everyone in the journey and so on? And the honest answer, and this is me opening up quite a lot, is like probably yes, probably I could have achieved the same while not necessarily having to grind it so crazily.
Hmm. Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Very personal thing to share. Okay, last one. What do you think is the biggest misconception people have about the space industry?
That it's the future. That's what everyone thinks. Space, it's the future, and it's not. It's the present.
Wow. And next good quote. Amazing. Cool. And actually, I have one more bonus question here. Imagine there are so many new aerospace engineering students right now sitting in classrooms, maybe working on stratospheric balloon projects on their own, like you did. Maybe staring at job offers at Airbus or Boeing, and probably choosing the safe corporate path. And then there is a path that you took. What would you tell that person who is deciding right now where to go?
Right. That's a big responsibility to answer this question because I'm a firm believer that uh, no one is a guru in these things. Okay, so I start caveating that with that, but um, I think the key advice is that they need to find their purpose, like what really matters to them, and if you can do that alongside another organization, whether it is Airbus or a university, or do it. It's much easier than just trying to go after all of these on your own. But if you have that purpose you feel it's not fulfilled by anything already established, you see a need, a real need, and you are honest with yourself and say, like, this is not an ego-driven thing. Like this is with the drive to solve that need. Take the first step and found. But don't found for the sake of founding, right? Um, found for the sake of purpose and need.
And find customers first before funding, like you did. Super important. Okay, great. And actually, one more thing. If there would be one important lesson that listeners or the people watching here, you would love them to take away from this episode, what would it be?
There are difficult things that are worth pursuing, and if you surround yourself with great people and great partners, and you work hard, they can happen. No, no matter how unmanageable they are to others. Like things can happen if you have that conviction and those key people and partners around you.
Thank you so much for for joining and sharing your journey. I really appreciate it, and I hope the community does as well.
Thank you, Martin.